Welcome to the MVP podcast, where we talk about anything NBA. I'm Sam Holcroft, joined alongside Geigh and Payton Thompson. Before we begin, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Momentum MVP, follow our Facebook page at MVP Momentum Podcast, and check us out on YouTube at MVP Momentum Podcast. So if you've listened to our football podcast, we did this, I want to say 2 months ago. We did a first round mock draft as a group. So how this worked is Gage gets the number 1 pick, I get number 2, Payton gets number 3, and we just keep cycling through. So Gage gets 4, I get 5, Payton gets 6, so on and so forth until we have drafted the entire first round. So Gage, start it off.
You're the San Antonio. Before we start off, how well did you do on the NFL one?
Let's not talk about that. We're gonna try to do better. We're gonna try to do better.
We'll get better.
We'll get better by each and every single draft. So if that means that we can get 4 of these right, then we'll take it.
Yep.
So Gage, you're the San Antonio Spurs. You are on the clock.
So the thing about it is that teams normally draft people they have worked out. If you look, the Spurs have not worked out Victor Wembanyama. That's a red flag. But I'm going to go out in a limb and say that the Spurs are going to do something different this year, and they're going to go ahead and draft Victor Wembanyama with the number 1 pick. No. Yeah. But they haven't worked him out. It's kind of risky.
A little bit.
If you go off of their number 1 workout, it's Jaime Jaquez. Or how? Jaime? I think that's how you say it.
I think so, yeah.
So it's either going to be Victor or Jaime, but, the coin flip, I'm going to go Victor.
All right. So with the second pick, the Charlotte Hornets, I said a couple weeks ago that I really feel like they're going to go with Scoot, even though they already have, Terry Rozier and LaMelo Ball. But in the last few weeks, I've really decided they're going to fill their needs. Miles Bridges might not be what they thought they were or what they thought he was 2 years ago. So they're going to go with Brandon Miller here out of Alabama. I think it fits the need that they have, and I think that it could help them out.
Interesting. I think personally I would have went Scoot just because of the talent. I think and I think they are going to go Scoot come draft night. I think it's just a little bit too much talent to pass up on, and I think they're expecting Miles to come back and be a strong contributor, and I think they'll be just fine with that combo. But with the third pick, I actually have the New Orleans Pelicans via trade taking Scoot Henderson. So the trade basically looks like the number 3 pick and Simons and Little for Ingram. The reason why it made sense to me personally is because I feel like at some point with Zion and Ingram being like a 3-4 combination, I think they're really going to have to choose between one guy or the other. And I think most people would assume right now they would pick Zion, but I think that long term, I think they think as long as he stays healthy, and it's a big if, but I think undoubtedly they think that Zion has the higher ceiling going forward. Now, whether they want to pursue that or not, we'll see. But in another case, I think they could also go with Zion as well. And so, I think either way, Pelicans get the number 3 pick out of it. They get their future point guard, and they really haven't had an all-star point guard since, I'm not sure, maybe Chris Paul. I might be forgetting someone, but and obviously that was a different time. That was the New Orleans Hornets and whatnot. But yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense for the Pelicans to make this move.
Yeah, I say that this is, mark my words, this whatever happens on the third pick is going to be the last time the Portland Trail Blazers, the last chance they have to be legit contenders. If they play this out right, because I don't see in the twilight years of Damian Lillard, I don't think there's any other better choice. You cannot afford to tank again, and just the next draft just isn't as good. And it was. I don't think most teams even plan to get number 1 pick. I think it was more of that we're super happy with the number 2 and 3, because these number 2 and 3s, they would be arguably amazing picks in other drafts as well. Number one picks in, especially if we're considering like the Giannis draft. I don't think that draft was really good, but I could see this caliber. I mean, this talent is just and insane, and the potential for each of these players is just unworldly.
All right, so you have the fourth pick with Houston.
So with that being said, Amen Thompson is just too good. I think the Rockets are eager to get away from Porter. It just doesn't seem like it's where they want to go. With all the buzz that's happening with possibly James Harden going to the Rockets or Jalen Green, or not Jalen Green, Jalen Brown going to the Rockets. I guess you would have Jalen Brown and Jalen Green. That's two different colors, whatever. um, so with those players, those rumors, it makes a lot of sense to just see if you can get a point guard who can learn. The potential is just insane. Now, as on the Rockets, it's super interesting because this was, I guess he's technically the first ever from one of the like post high school leagues from like I keep forgetting, is it Overtime Elite?
Yeah, Overtime Elite, yeah.
And the only proven, I guess, most scouts, a lot of the film they look at is the basketball tournament. Uh, that's the only footage you can really compare him against NBA tier talents, which he was pit up against former D1 athletes who probably could have gotten drafted, older players, players in the G League. So I think I think it just makes a lot of sense that you replace KPJ with Amen Thompson because you kept KPJ on your roster because he had so much potential. But Amen is just as much potential, younger, and might not cause such a ruckus on the team's culture. So yeah, Amen Thompson.
With the fifth pick, the Detroit Pistons. I feel like they went with Cade Cunningham I think 2 years ago, Jaden Ivey last year. I don't think that they need to go with a guard, so I think that they're going to go with Cam Whitmore out of Villanova. I feel like he's a pretty good off-ball scorer, and I feel like that could really help them, especially when you have two guys that can be kind of ball dominant, kind of like the Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey combo that you have. This team, they just got a new coach. They're very young, so they're trying to build a culture there, so then they can hopefully be competing for a playoff spot in the next few years, and then competing for the East a few years after that. So I think Cam Whitmore is going to help build that culture.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I really like the fit with Monty Williams and even Cade and Ivy. I think he's definitely a guy that can just put his head down and go get a bucket or maybe spread the floor out a little bit for Ivy and Cade. And those guys are obviously, typically pass first guys. I mean, they can get their own bucket, but both those guys don't have any problem passing the ball. So I think in that respect, it makes a lot of sense. But with my sixth pick, I also have another trade. I'm doing a lot of trades, I guess, on my front. But with this one, the Warriors are going to receive Magic's number 6 pick, and the Magic are going to receive Poole Kuminga, the 2024 second. Right, yeah. Oh, I guess, and the Warriors are also getting Bol Bol and Chuma Okeke for some salary filler. And, as far as those two guys are concerned, I think they would be okay bench pieces, but nothing long term. But then as far as the pick goes, I think they're going to pick Jarris Walker here at number 6. I think with the kind of culture they've built with Draymond Green, there's no better player than to build the foundation of what he set down many years ago. And I think it's a guy Steve Kerr would really bond well with, and they can listen to him and learn from the winning culture. And I think the fit just makes a little bit too much sense to pass up on. Not to mention, I think he is the BPA here.
Okay. For the next pick for the Pacers, I think it makes sense to just go ahead and get Taylor Hendricks. Taylor Hendricks, it feels like he can play a small forward or a power forward. He's kind of a good shooter, well-rounded. I think the Pacers are starting to fill out a little bit. They're starting to find who they're going to move forward with. Um, I think it really centers around Halliburton, and um, I think Taylor Hendricks does fit into a player who can benefit from that playmaking. Um, I just I just think it's just as of right now, it's too good of a fit compared to the other players. I don't think they're going to go best available. Uh, so that's why I'm going to go ahead and go Taylor Hendricks. Uh, he's just too versatile, too athletic, great from three, shooting 39% from three in college. Can board,
Fits
and
well with
enough
Turner
said.
as well.
Yeah, goes well with Turner.
With the eighth pick, I think the Washington Wizards, especially since they just got rid of Bradley Beal, I feel like that they might need to fill out that backcourt, and they're going to go with Anthony Black here. He's a pretty big point guard. He's got some great handles and some pretty elite passing ability. He showed that he could be uh, pretty good as a freshman in the SEC. And I like to see what he would do with this Wizards. I mean, they're going to be entering the rebuild mode, so it's not going to be the prettiest for his first few years. But I mean, if they can get him some talent to go with him for a few years, I feel like that this guy could be a great pick for future years.
I just here's the thing. I think I as a Wizards as in the Wizards culture, I feel like they would be more tempted to pick a player who's kind of played like John Wall, who's fast and athletic, and so I am very scary that you're picking Black over a Sir Thompson here. I think either of them can flip, but I really think they're gonna go with Sir Thompson. I'm not gonna lie. I think the athleticism is good. You have a player who plays basically like Trevor Ariza at his floor. I just, if you're really taking, I think it might take a while to see Black's like playmaking come to fruition. Um, so I'm going. I really think Thompson, but I guess we're going Black.
I would before I go on my pick, I would have to say I agree with Sam on this pick. I think when you look back at the Wizards' time, I don't think they necessarily think that that's the way to go again. I think that they're okay changing the culture, and I'm pretty certain there's not many people that are on the front office staff and the ownership staff that were there when they drafted John Wall in 2010. And if there are, it's probably very few people. And so I don't think necessarily they're going to compare that draft, but I think they're going to understand their needs now and kind of the direction that they should go. Like I think we would agree, or at least maybe. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I think I'd agree. If you're going to try to emulate the old Washington Wizards teams, that's the wrong way to go. I don't think that's the right way to go. Now, if it's a guy like Scoot, then I can understand, but I don't think Azar is John Wall. I think that's a bit different. Um, but so I'm okay with the pick because I think it's a need, and I think it immediately changes the culture of having a guy that plays defense first and passes first, and it's going to help their other guys like Denny and Johnny Davis. But
But Asar could play some defense. Asar can play
no,
some
Asar will
defense.
play great defense, yeah, but he's not a point guard like Anthony Black is. He can
Mm-hmm.
dish the rock, but he's not the point guard Anthony Black is.
Mm-hmm. And I think if
Um,
Asar falls this far, I don't know. Okay.
Well, here we go. Here's my next pick. My next pick is Azar Thompson, and like
Mm-hmm.
you said, you're kind of already saying it before. His ceiling is so high that it's really hard for a team at number 9 not to take him. A team like the Jazz, especially, they don't really have that many guys with high ceilings. They have a lot of high floor guys, the guys that help them win right now, but they don't really have any blue chip kind of guys. And I think Azar at 9, if you can get him to slide here, that's probably best case scenario, or at least one of the best case scenarios that you could hope for. And kind of like you said before, he's a very coming out of the box. He's going to be a very, I mean, maybe not smart is the right word, but he's going to be serviceable at really whatever position you put him at, whether that's the 1, 2, or the 3. And I think he's a guy that can learn over time, but he's immediately going to be a great athlete and he's going to play great defense. And not a lot of guys do that right off the bat. So, if he can just pick up certain things and learn from certain guys, and I think he can do that under Will Hardy with the Jazz, then I think it's a great fit. And just the talent's off the charts with this guy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then for 10, I think we should go Derek Lively. I think he's just the best center in the draft, and considering the center who's being drafted that's by the Mavericks, right? I can't see your screen too well.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Derek Lively makes a lot of sense for the Mavericks. He's a good defensive rim protector with a team that desperately needs the defense, and kind of a center that can match up well without needing the pressure to, the pressure to perform offensively. I think it's really weird here because I could also see this pick also being traded. I mean, we're going to just go ahead and lock in that the Dallas Mavericks are going to take him. But I could see Derek Lively being traded to maybe a team like the Golden State Warriors, who would desperately like this player after that Wiseman kind of failed to be that rim protector that they really needed. So either Mavericks, but I could also see this being a trade here.
Yeah. So with the 11th pick, the Orlando Magic are up, and I mean, right now we have a lot of guards on the table, and the one person that I'm going to go with, he can also play small forward, and that would be Grady Dick out of Kansas. I feel like since the Magic have quite a few playmakers, I feel like they could really use a lights out shooter, especially someone who can open the floor and space the floor as good as someone like Grady Dick can. It's gonna be tough to guard him, and if you let him get hot from range, then you have to step up, and then that's just more work that Wendell Carter can do down low for you. So I think Grady Dick is the pick that the Magic go with here.
Yeah, yeah, I like that because if you think about what they got for the number 6 pick, then your front 5 is looking at Jordan Poole, Grady Dick, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, and Wendell Carter Jr. And I think that's a pretty nice young starting 5 to kind of lay out there. And I think it's also a younger team that would be ready to maybe not compete, but I think they could beat a lot of teams if they're not on their game. But yeah, with my pick with the Thunder, you kind of mentioned it before about there being a lot of guards around this point, and a couple of maybe project bigs up there, maybe 15 to 20 range. And, I'm got to be honest with you, this Thunder pick kind of stumped me a little bit because when you look at the Thunder, it seems like the way that Sam Presti's built this team is that the team is pretty much filled out to where they need to be. They really just need some guys off the bench to come in and do their job and be the role guys, and they just need the younger guys that are starting to grow up. So and I'm not completely sold on their backup guards. I like Trey Mann coming out of Auburn, but he's kind of been up and down for them. Kind of lacks vision and isn't the biggest guy either. He's kind of small, I believe, at 6 feet tall. So I went ahead and I got Keontae George for them, a guy that's a little bit bigger. He is, I would say, a little bit closer to a project guard than he is a finished product by any means, but he is on the younger side. He can be a scorer off the bench, and he's going to have plus side to him, and he's going to be athletic as well. And he kind of had a rough tournament, and I think that kind of took him out of like the early lottery news or the talk, I should say. But if you look at like the season he put together and the numbers he put together, I think he deserves to be here in the lottery. So that's why I have Thunder taking him.
So for 13, here's the thing. If there is one pick that I am certain will happen if he falls, it is this pick of Jalen Hood. I think because Jalen Hood has proven himself in Indiana to be the best pick and roll point guard in the draft. And with the combination of Fred VanVleet about to leave, plus the combination of you wanting to build around Siakam, possibly Siakam and Pirtle in the future, and for a player to be able to unlock that, you want this guy. It just makes so much sense. And so I think if I am the most confidence I have is going to be this pick with Jalen Hood at number 13. It just makes way too much sense. They're spoon fed. It might be the best fit in the draft. Like in terms of the best kind of ratio between best available versus best fit, this is perfect. And I just don't see Toronto going any other way, especially if Keontae George is not in there. I would say it would be between Keontae and Jalen Hood. But if we have Keontae going first as this kind of like project, Jalen Hood is a no brainer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting money on that.
I
Go
like
ahead.
that.
You can go ahead and clip that. If Keontae George is picked first, then Jalen Hood will go to Toronto, no doubt.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So with the 14th pick, the New Orleans Pelicans, they already traded, and they got Nasir Little and Anthony Simons, and it's kind of funny. And they draft. Oh yeah, and they drafted Scoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it might sound like that they're going a little guard heavy here, but I have them drafting Jordan Hawkins, which is kind of funny because I feel like his NBA comparison is an Anthony Simons. So, and he's just got more to his game than just shooting, and I think that he could just have a good surprising upside, especially since like with this trade, I don't think that he's going to necessarily be a starter. So we can take time and kind of develop, be that sixth man, seventh man, eighth man. So yeah, I got Hawkins out of UConn here.
Yeah, and I really like CJ as his mentor too, because Hawkins wouldn't be a guy that would have to play right away. You know, he could be on the bench and learn from CJ, and I think that's the type of guy he needs to learn from. You know, a shooter that's maybe a little bit undersized, but even Hawkins has a good size to him, maybe just a little bit underweight, I should say, and that'd be a good mentor for him. But for the Atlanta Hawks at number 15 here, I had Kobe Buffkin out of Michigan. I think for them, it's another one of those teams that I mean at this point they're none of these guys are going to probably start, right? I mean, very situationally are they going to start, and this is another team where I think at both guard positions and as of right now at the 4 and the 5 and probably even the 3 because of DeAndre Hunter, they're not going to be rushing to get guys that are going to start right away. So I think they're going to take a younger guy, and they're going to go with Kobe Buffkin that can play point guard off the bench. He's an upside defender. And I think a lot of teams are bought in on his intangibles and his character and how he played with Michigan. So yeah, I have them taking him at 15.
I think for 16, I'm gonna go ahead and go Cason Wallace. He's arguably the best perimeter defender in the draft. 6'3". I don't see that Utah seems to be building kind of a defensive heavy team, so I can see him being a perfect connection with what they're trying to do. I'm gonna go ahead and compare him to like Drew Holiday. I think he can develop with what they got going on there. I can see him developing into that kind of role with everything going right with Kessler Walker. He just fits perfectly with what I guess Lauri Markkanen also. So it also makes sense that they would draft the point guard here. So Cason Wallace, just in terms of the culture fit of what they're trying to build, what historic Utah teams have built, they've always preferred to build defensive heavy teams, and that's how they've managed to always stay relevant. I feel like this is the first time that we've ever seen the Utah Jazz full on rebuild, but even then they kind of struggled this season. Like they kind of had to force it a little bit with their emergence of Lauri Markkanen and Kessler Walker and I think who else who's coming off the bench as the shooting guard. Taylor Horn Tucker was okay.
Oh, Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah, Jordan Clarkson, who although had a lot of turnovers, one of the worst turnover to shooting like ratios in the league. But we'll ignore that.
Sexton was a decent player when he played, but he didn't play much.
But who knows? Maybe he didn't play because they were trying to tank. But
yeah, I mean, who knows?
I could honestly see Jordan Clarkson being traded in the future.
Me too.
Yeah.
All right. So with the 17th pick, the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, when I was thinking about this, I was kind of debating, and I debated with you guys. It's like I don't think that they go guard here. I mean, we got some forwards that are starting to kind of come up, and like that wouldn't be too far of a reach now. But I think that they're going to go with Leonard Millard. They worked him out. He had a pretty nice season for the Ignite. It looks like he's going to be like a mid to late first rounder, which is exactly what this pick would be. He's a big guy. He can play small forward. He can play power forward, which is, I think, what the Lakers need. Being 6'9" with a 7'2" wingspan, I feel like that it's going to help them defensively, especially when you have Anthony Davis there. LeBron, if he can still play some good defense, like this is going to be a tough team to score on if this guy can play right away, or even if he, plays 2 or 3 years down the road once LeBron is gone, and you just build around him and Anthony Davis. Like that's going to be a tough defense to play.
Yeah, yeah, I like that pick. Really, just based on versatility in his defense, and just how much he can do on the basketball court, it's going to help the Lakers a lot. With my 18th pick, I have Dariq Whitehead. Now, Dariq Whitehead's kind of an interesting player in this draft class. I think if he hadn't gotten hurt and he would have played more games and he would have still had that pop throughout the season, I think he could have went as high as the lottery or even maybe top 10. But as far as his games that he did play, they weren't the greatest, and he did lose a lot of athleticism. But as still a really young guy, I think a team like the Heat would take a gamble on a guy like him, a guy that can be still really athletic, a guy that can be a good connector piece, can be a good scorer. He is tall, he's 6'7", and so I think them taking Nikola Jovic last year as more of that project kind of guy. I do think Whitehead would still have to be a project, but I think he's kind of the opposite. Whereas I think Jovic is still learning the nuances of the game and the fundamentals in shooting, but I think Dariq Whitehead would have to learn more about, or would be kind of the opposite of he has all the intangibles and he knows how to play the game, but he still has to have the pop and the athleticism and kind of what he showed in high school. So I think the Heat would be a good team to take a gamble on that, and of course he'd be surrounded by some of the best vets in the league.
So for the next pick, I think that Jet Howard would make so much sense for the Warriors. I mean, if you think about what the Warriors would like, they would like one an off ball player who's talented off ball. You want someone who can space the floor, and you want someone who is good and who can play well off of catch and shoot situations. So there's three things, and I think Jet Howard does all of them. Combine that with the mentorship from Juwan Howard, his dad, then you get a player who would fit right into the Warriors' offensive scheme, especially with the potential of Jordan Poole leaving. Now, Jet Howard is nowhere near the slasher that Jordan Poole has developed to be, but if anything, the Warriors have shown that they can actually develop these players to fit within the scheme. With that 1 year, that one stint when the Warriors were tanking, they were shown that they can develop those guards a little bit better. Now we did see Wiseman not develop like they would, but I do feel more confident that any player who can catch and shoot can develop into much more of a shooting guard. Heck, even Duncan Robinson was able to develop some sort of moves to be able to make him a little bit more versatile. But Jet Howard just makes a lot of sense for the Warriors, and I'd be surprised if they don't really take him here. I'd be really surprised.
All right, and with the 20th pick, I actually have the Houston Rockets trading this pick. I don't think that the Rockets initiate this, even though like they probably are trying to shop away this pick. But I actually think that the New York Knicks get on the phone and offer this pick to the Rockets. So it's going to be pick 20 for a future or 2024 first round pick and a 2025 second round pick that the Rockets will receive for this. The New York Knicks don't have a single pick this draft. So like they literally aren't like their front office can, on Thursday night, you just go out and, I mean, they could even call it an early night. They can go to bed, but I think that they want to make a pick here. And I feel like it's going to be because Noah Clowney is available at pick 20, and that's the guy that they want to pick. Whether that's a replacement for Julius Randle if they do ship him out, or if they want to play some sort of like small ball where Julius Randle moves to the center, or maybe try to have Clowney be the center. I don't think that that would work as well, but they have options to do. I mean, they're pretty guard heavy with who they have now, with R.J. Barrett, and even though he could play small forward, Emmanuel Quickly and Jalen Brunson now. But I think that the Knicks get on the phone and they make this pick to the Rockets, especially because I don't think the Rockets necessarily need this pick, considering that they probably have the most guys under 21 years of age in the NBA.
Yeah, I like all the reasons you listed out for both teams there. And I completely agree. I think it's a good trade for the Rockets because if you can get future assets and get off that player, it'd be great. So, yeah, I really like that. And as far as the Knicks go, they really need to figure out what they're doing long term at that big position. So, yeah, I like it. For my 21st pick, the first pick of the back to back picks for the Brooklyn Nets, I have them picking Nick Smith Jr. I think, to be honest with you guys, I think that in some other drafts, Nick Smith wouldn't have fell this far. But I think the way that the board went, I think it just had to happen. And at this point, he's just too valuable of a high upside guy to pass up on here. Um, I think at times in Arkansas, I think Anthony Black kind of took the shine away a little bit, and then sometimes on defense he would also take the shine away a little bit, and it kind of made Nick Smith Jr. look a little bit inferior, especially when he's holding 6'5", 180 pounds, and that's kind of it with him. I think if he either A doesn't put on at least 20 to 25 pounds, maybe 30 pounds of weight, or if he doesn't shoot at the same level he could shoot in the NCAA, then it's gonna be trouble for him. And I think he has a chance to be out of the league if he doesn't figure one of those two things out. Because as a slasher, he's just too small. He just can't really do it yet. And if he shoots 38% his first year, or even 36%, and he can kind of be somewhat of a spot up threat, then he can do that. But as a point guard, it's really hard if that shot doesn't come, and you're also really small and you're not that athletic either. So, yeah. With that being said, the upside's there.
Now for pick 22 with Ryan Rupert, he's gonna have the same problems that you're saying, Payton, with Nick Smith Jr. He is just not strong enough, but he has the size to be able, and has proven to be able to play defense on multiple different perimeter positions. He can be your guy to play defense on the point guard. He can be your guy to play, shooting guard, small forward, if he can fill out and get stronger. He has a lot of room to make there. Now his shooting is also real spotty. There has been times where he can make the pull up shot, but sometimes it just doesn't go in. But if you're pick 22, you're not really relying on this guy to give you 20 a game. What you're relying him to do is kind of try to feel if he can figure out a Jarrett Vanderbilt role where you're hoping that he can, be your go-to defender. But I think with the Nets, I think that's what I think he would be a good project. It's always best, it's always good. It's a good bet. It's a bet that you can get a guy to fill out the muscle, and especially if you've seen that they had some good work ethic, then you would want a guy. Then it seems like you would rather train for strength rather than height. And frame.
Right.
And this guy has a 7'3" wingspan. The
You
guy's
can't
going to,
teach height, but you can gain weight.
yeah.
Right.
And so I think he would be a good pick. If he fills out, best case scenario, you got Jarrett Vanderbilt on the bench, or you have, I think his height is like, you can either go OG Anunoby, guys like that, and any team would love to have.
All right. And with the 23rd pick, the Portland Trail Blazers, they already traded for Brandon Ingram. So I think they're going to go with Maxwell Lewis here, not only to kind of be that six-man role, but I just feel like that with Maxwell, that he's a very talented wing and he can really shoot the rock. and he has a great offensive upside. He's got very good size and length to be that small forward, but he just does need to figure out things on the defensive end. And I feel like that's kind of been Portland's thing for a little while. Um, but I mean, he's not going to be starting right away. He's going to have time to kind of develop, and hopefully that he can get better on the defensive end. But I think that he could be that good 6, 7, 8 man role that they need, especially because they got rid of Nasir Little and Anthony Simons in that trade.
Yeah, I completely agree. And honestly, if they re-sign Jeremy Grant, what better two guys to learn to be long and athletic and defensive than Brandon Ingram and Jeremy Grant? Those are two mentors that I think Maxwell Lewis could really vibe off of. As far as the Kings at 24, I have Keegan Murray's brother, Chris Murray. I honestly, and I think this is, it might sound crazy unless someone picks them. If he's there at 24, I think they're more likely to go him than most other prospects. Because when you look at their roster, as long as Harrison Barnes stays on the Kings and Keegan Murray is going to take that starting power forward spot still, I assume, then there's really no room for a starter on this team or even maybe a seventh or eighth guy. And so I think they're okay with kind of letting him develop and then having the extra chemistry with him and his brother. And I think they're going to probably think that's going to help Chris come along as well. And then also, if you want to say, yeah, they're trying to win right now, Chris Murray is also one of the older rookies in the class. So he would also be very similarly giving you good production as a rookie like Keegan Murray did because he's been in the system. He played with Iowa. He's a 3-year guy. So he makes sense in that front too. So I think it kind of just makes a little bit too much sense to not go Chris Murray if he's on the board here.
For pick number 25, I think so. This is where I think the steal of the draft is going to come in because I'm going to go with Bryce Sensabaugh. I keep butchering his name, but I think Bryce, he is the steal of the draft because if you look at the last 15 years, he is, I believe, top 10 in the offensive box plus minus. And who he's up with there with names with James Harden, Zion Williamson. The guy will give you so many points, and I'm really upset that we had Bryce fall this far back.
Yeah.
Because I think, if you have it any other way, a team that really needs a scorer could just go with Bryce. And I think that Memphis will see this. Memphis will be able to have a guy who can come off the bench for Ja and also give you some points. It does feel like sometimes it's the only guy who can make offense happen for the team or himself is Ja. So Bryce makes a lot of sense here, and I think he's going to be the steal of the draft. He's just too valuable. He's has the quickest first step I've seen in college in a while. I've seen his videos, but like I said, his offense is up there with players like Lonzo Ball, Markelle Fultz, Jamal Murray, D'Angelo Russell, Marvin Bagley, Anthony Davis, Trae Young. He was up there with his offensive box plus minus in college. Now I'm not going to say that he also brought in the other attributes like Anthony Davis and defensively, but that's why he's in this kind of range here. If he did defensively do this great, he would be top 10 lottery pick.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
Yeah, and so he just fits too perfectly. He's going to be a steal of the draft, and I think he's a guy I would bet on in the future to be possibly a future 6-man of the year.
I like that.
Okay. So with the 26th pick, pick number 2 of 3 of the Indiana Pacers, we went with Asir Thompson earlier. I think they're going to go with Jaime Jaquez Jr. out of UCLA. He's a 6'6", 226 small forward. He's very versatile, and he's a very hardworking wing who he plays with some great energy, and he can easily light it up from the outside, just like a lot of other guys in this draft. But I feel like that this, like a forward is something that they need. This is another guy. I've been saying this for the last few picks where they could be that 6, 7, 8 kind of role, especially because, I mean, you can move Buddy to that 3. You can have Asir Thompson play the 3. But realistically, I mean, Jaime can come off the bench and be a 3 as well. So I think that that's what Indiana's going to go with for their second out of the 3 picks.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think something you didn't really touch on either that makes a lot of sense with Jacquise Jr. is that he is a senior, and that's kind of the guys that Rick Carlisle likes. You know, he likes those older guys that kind of know how to play, so he doesn't have to do all the teaching and babysitting. He doesn't like to develop players. He likes guys that are ready, like Chris Duarte, Tyrese Halliburton to a certain extent. But with that being said, with the 27th pick in the Hornets, they selected Brendan Miller to be their small forward of the future, and now I believe they're going to grab their power forward if Miles Bridges doesn't quite come back to the same form. Or you could even move Brandon Miller down to shooting guard. But anyways, I have them taking Gregory Jackson the second, also known as GG Jackson. I think that he would have looked a lot better if he would have gone to a better program that would have had more spacing. It would have allowed him to have better teammates that he could have, maybe played off of a little bit better. But I just think sometimes he got very tunnel visiony and very me, and his counting stats are pretty decent, but it's like they didn't win a lot there at South Carolina, and a lot of the time I feel like he just really wasn't there mentally, and I'm not sure if that was a program thing or if that's kind of a character thing, and that's I think one of those things that the teams would have to figure out as far as interviews and workouts and things like that. But like as far as the tools are there. He can be a player in this league. He's 6'9", he's got a nice frame, and he's athletic, and he can be good. He can be a good go-to scorer at that size, but he's going to have to figure out his role in this league, and he's going to have to figure out how the coach wants to utilize him. And he's got to be able to play in a system. And if he's not going to be able to do those things, I could easily see him being a bust. But on the other side of it, I think if he works into a system that's able to really bring the most out of him, at least personality and character wise, and I think he could also be one of those guys that we look back on and we say, how did this guy fall to 27? Maybe he should have gone closer to top 15 or at least top 18. He's here at 27, so I think it's a good pick for the Hornets.
I think for pick number 28, this is where things get a little shaky because now, like, these last 3 players could, fall all the way to the second round. And the reason why it's shaky because, well, for number 28, I pick Andre Jackson Jr. And this guy's a pure slasher. He was, a part of the UConn run. But what scares me about this guy is that he cannot shoot. He has forced teams to play that sag off defense that we've seen against a lot of players who can't shoot, and that could really ruin a team's spacing completely and make you unplayable. So with Andre Jackson Jr., you have a slasher, a guy who can guard 1 through 4. But the scary thing that this guy might struggle to see the court is just he can't shoot. Now, you might ask, say, well, Gage, what if you develop him into a shooter? Well, the scary thing is he's a junior, and this problem has happened since he was a freshman. And we have not seen any improvement from his freshman, sophomore, or junior year. He's still shooting about the same, even though the coaches have made it, made an effort to improve his shooting. It just hasn't been there. There's hope that, you do have a time to develop. In Utah, he might end up getting sent to the G League to still work on that 3-point shot. But I wouldn't be surprised if this guy falls to the second round of the draft. I think he will get drafted. I really do think he will. I think we'll see him in the summer league, but I think he's running out of time as a junior compared to all the other players that you could play ahead of him that won't destroy your spacing. That's just how it is. He's nowhere. He's not even a threat.
And then with the 29th pick, the last pick of the Indiana Pacers for the first round, I have them going with a center here. I'm going with James Naji out of Nigeria. He's a young stud with all the physical tools that you could ask for. Great length. He's 6'10", with a 7'7" wingspan, and he's really quick off his feet. And I really have a hard time thinking that this guy is going to get outside of the first round with his tools that he has. I mean, we've had, let's see, how many centers off the board? I think this is number 3 after, so there's
Yeah,
light.
I think
Yeah, I
so.
guess.
It's a
Yeah.
very thin center class.
Yeah. Victor, Lively, and then, then James.
Osby.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of teams that could use a center like this. And the fact that he's fallen to 29, I feel like that, I mean, they could, the Pacers could have took him at 26 too, but I mean, I feel like the fact that he landed on their lap at 29, they'll take that, especially him being behind Miles Turner, maybe even playing with Miles Turner, him and just going like twin tower mode down there. So I feel like that this could be a good fit for the Pacers, and that he's not falling out of the first round.
Yeah, I agree. It's a pretty good value pick for them. Now with the last pick of the first round of the draft, the Clippers are going to select Brandon Podziemski out of Santa Clara. When I evaluated him, I couldn't honestly find too many flaws in his game. I think the biggest thing about him is one, he doesn't have a very long wingspan and he's not very tall at a shooting guard position. And so that's really going to get to him when he has to guard bigger guards. They're at that 6'7" to 6'9" ratio. It's going to be really hard for him to get his hands in there and get his hands on blocks and balls and things like that. And another thing that I think is really going to maybe hurt or increase his stock a lot is what teams think about his playing competition, because in Santa Clara he played a lot of bad teams, and don't get me wrong, he played some good teams too, but I think that's also going to weigh a factor in, because if you look at his counting stats, his counting stats are really good, but I think when you look at a lot of the teams that he played against, the competition wasn't very good, and he was kind of streaky from time to time depending on how good the team was. So I think that's something that you really have to evaluate when you look at him and workouts and interview him and kind of get his thought process on where he sees himself in the next level. I don't know if he's ever going to be a high upside guy, but I think he's a guy that can come in and be a microwave scorer off the bench if he gets the right mentorship. And I think one of the best places you can get mentorship, especially microwave scoring, is a team like the Clippers, where they have Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, Norman Powell. And it's funny that they have Norman Powell, actually, because I think that's a really good comp. I don't think he's ever going to be the type of athlete or the type of defender of a Norman Powell, but his frame is very similar. 6'6", a shorter wingspan, but still kind of that stockier guy that's going to have to be bigger on the next level. So I think that'd be a great team for him to learn from. So I got him going to the Clippers.
All right. So that concludes our first round group mock draft. So how do we think we did, guys? Like, is this going to be realistic? And like Payton, I mean, Gage brought it up earlier, but he said, "How did it go?" And when you, me, and Sean finished our football one, we were like, "I think we did good. I think we nailed it." And we ended up getting only 3 picks right,
Yeah.
essentially. So
Mhm.
it was not good. So I guess how do we feel? Are we confident in this one? I'm
I
kind
feel
of.
better than that. I definitely think that the NFL is a little bit harder to project, because especially like this year there were so many trades that we didn't see coming, and just players fall. But it's kind of hard to compare in that way. But I do think that man, if we don't get at least 3 or 4 picks right, we're gonna be hurt.
Yeah.
We have to, right?
Yeah, then
Yeah.
just end the whole thing.
Yeah. Just take this video down. Take this
Yeah,
audio
just
down.
take the video down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the goal is 4, right? We're just gonna just keep building.
Well,
Like,
no, the
No.
goal is 30, but obviously we got to be realistic.
How about I put
And I
in?
just want progress.
Who's gonna carry? Who's gonna carry out of all of us? Who is gonna carry? I already get an automatic number 1 +1. I'm already getting.
Yeah, you do get a good starter piece.
I'll
I
start
don't
a feast.
know. You were thinking
And then I have
about
Jalen
it.
Hood. Jalen Hood is gonna get drafted by Toronto.
Toronto.
Think so.
Okay.
I think it's a good fit too, if that's how it goes. But I think that the draft is really going to start at 2 and 3, and that's going to kind of depend on where the draft goes. Because if those 2 flips are flip flopped, then it might not change that much. But if like one of those 2 falls to 4, that might change everything.
Brandon
So,
Miller is probably a lock, maybe. No.
I don't know,
I
man.
don't know. Scoot can go there too.
and I don't think he's necessarily a lock at 3. Like I think they would probably. I think the Blazers, if they're there, because this trade up is assuming Scoot's there. I think on draft night, if they wait and they don't trade the pick, I think there's a very good chance that the Blazers pick Brandon Miller as well. But something scares me as far as me as a Rockets fan wanting Amen Thompson. I feel like one team might just pull the trigger on him at number 3 to go get him. But here's the thing:
Go ahead.
if Scoot's there, then we're cool.
Yeah.
But if let's say Scoot goes 2, and then they want to trade for Amen Thompson instead of Scoot, like I mean, it probably doesn't happen, but I bet you there's a couple crazy GMs that would do it, man. That would just go height because they can work with it, and they're very similar athleticism too. But I think, and we'll talk about these guys separately later, and we kind of already did before as well. But I think the biggest difference is one is just a lot more commanding. You could definitely just see it when they play. Like one guy just knows how to be a leader of men. And I think one guy, not I don't mean to jinx it there, because it's Scoop, but I think just Amon is just that more guy that's not. He's going to be more reserved, and he's not going to be that floor general, but he's going to have similar athleticism, similar passing, similar scoring. But I think Scoot's just a little bit more cerebral.
I think you're selling a sir. I just that pick when what did we have a sir at?
9.
9.
No, it's not happening.
But see if we're doing this draft together, and it's tough to say. Like, yeah, I believe you. At 9, that's a steal, but I don't know if I would take him at 8. I would take him at maybe
It'd probably
7.
be at 7. Yeah.
Yeah, I would take him at 7 to the Pacers. But if I'm the Pistons, I'm going Cam. If I'm choosing between the Twins, and obviously this might be a hot take in the draft too because Osar might go first. I'm personally taking Amon. But you never know. A GM might just say whatever, and we're going to go with a guy that maybe has shown a little bit more upside on the defensive side. But I think Amon's a slightly better athlete. I don't know how that works with Twins, but that's what I've seen with the eye test, and that's what I've heard from other people I respect. So,
Yeah. And talking about twins, I mean, they're not twins, but they're brothers. The fact that you have the Kings drafting Chris Murray is kind of funny. But I mean,
no, they are twins. That's another side of twins.
Oh, are they? I didn't know that. That's funny.
So dude, the identical twins are coming to the NBA apparently these last couple of years.
Apparently.
I mean, the ones that I knew before were just Marcus and Markieff, right?
Yeah, I think so.
At least in the last 10 years.
But is there anything else you guys want to bring up?
I don't think so.
All right. So I guess we got the draft on Thursday. It's in a few days. We'll see how we did. Hopefully we can get at least 4. Hopefully
half the lottery. That's what I want our goal to be.
Half the lottery. I'm
half the lottery.
Cool with that. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, that's going to be our goal.
All right.
Gage is like, no.
But once again, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Momentum MVP. Follow our Facebook page at MVP Momentum Podcast, and check out our YouTube at MVP Momentum Podcast. I've been Sam Holcroft.
And Geigh Zollicoffer.
I've been Payton Thompson.
Thanks for listening.